Our next speaker is a global medical device leader, investor, and people developer with extensive international experience. Jasmin Nuhic explores careers in MedTech at the intersection of technology, regulation, and patient-centered care. It highlights the full continuum of care and emerging opportunities in Bosnia's medical device market. Jasmin calls for purpose-driven, adaptable leadership in a rapidly evolving healthcare industry. He's joining us via Zoom link today, so please give us a big round of applause until he joins.
Okay. Greetings from Memphis, Tennessee. I trust you guys can hear me. Okay. All right. I'll start from scratch. So first of all, greetings from Memphis, Tennessee. My name is Jasmin Nuhic. I'm glad to be here with you virtually today and hopefully in person next time. My intention today will be to talk to you about career opportunities in medical device field with a focus on patients. For next 20 to 25 minutes together, I will split my presentation in several aspects that hopefully gives you a little bit about more insights about my personal, professional growth and development and career that I have had over the course of the last 26, 27 years, as well as to how my career evolved throughout as a medical device industry evolved. And then I will shift towards what are some of the opportunities that exist currently and in the near future in Bosnia. And I'll finish up with some call to action, as well as leave some time for a Q&A that either I received already or you may ask or generate throughout the presentation. In part of my presentation today, you will see some complementary information that had already been shared by Honorable Rector Pamela Habibovic last night. It's worthwhile going through it, reading it again if you haven't had a chance, because what regenerative medicine does, it is awesome. And while it is potentially a future, until that happens, medical device may be a solution. So, no further ado, I will start a little bit about myself and tell you a little bit about my career before I dive into what motivates me and how my career evolved in the past 26, 27 years. So, I'll start with saying that my career in medical device is actually my second career. My original career was I played handball professionally for 4 years, had a good time doing it, but not good enough that I could make it to the big leagues, make enough money. So eventually I got my degree and joined the industry. I've been blessed to serve medical device industry for now almost full 27 years and have a chance to work alongside as well as the lead teams spreading across 7 different countries, 3 different continents, and across multiple types of medical devices. Throughout my career, not only did I work on the devices themselves, but I spent a lot of time on the business aspect of medical device industry that included a working on the mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, and in some cases, a partnerships with small, mid-sized, and large companies, including the largest medical device acquisition that ever happened between Medtronic and Covidien. So, why am I doing what I'm doing? And what motivates me? And what gets me going every morning? I don't drink coffee. I don't need it because I know that as I do my job and as I work to contribute to medical device industry, for every second that folks in medical device industry work, there's 6 people around the world that benefit from medical device technology. Just think about it, 6 people for every second. So by the time my time slot is over today with you, in the next 25 to 30 minutes, if you do the math, you'll come up with something along the lines of 10,000 to 10,800 patients, 10,000 to 10,800 people around the world will benefit from medical device technology because the people that work in medical device technology provide that for them. I'll let that sink in because we are, as an industry, very proud of the fact that we measure ourselves on how many people and how many patients we support every second that we work. Patients like Mr. Squires, if you see a picture of him and his daughter at the bottom part of screen, he had not one, but 2 full knee replacements in his body. Those 2 replacements came in 3 months apart from each other. Yet after the second replacement, 3 months after that, he ran with his daughter a cross-country race. Now, you may say, well, what's so special about it? Not much, honestly. First of all, he was very disciplined about his recovery, but think about his quality of life, his bonding with his daughter, his memories being built that otherwise could not have happened unless we had a involvement of medical device industry, medical device implants, instruments, and so on and so forth. So when I think about what motivates me and what drives me and why I believe that I'm in the right place in the right time is the people like Mr. Squires. And I have to share one more thing. Mr. Gaffin, he's the current president of a medical device company, but not just a president, he's also a patient. And for him, it was not just a 1, but 2 hip replacements. And he had them 6 months apart after a number of years of struggling with the pain. I wish you can hear a full story, but what's probably some of the most impressive thing is 6 months after the second surgery, he went on and he kind of broke. You will hear of any kind of dislocation or impact on his performance or style or lifestyle. So when I think about their journey, Mr. Squires, Mr. Gaffin, and my career journey, I can only say it is a journey. There is no secret sauce when it comes to professional development. There is no secret sauce when it comes to the work in the medical device industry. Some of you guys are still young in the career, in the professional life. Some of you guys been around, and I can only tell you, as a first advice that I can give you, is there is no shortcuts. Follow your passion, but also follow the industry that you choose. In my case, when I think about my career in the medical device industry, it truly evolved as the industry evolved. So think about continuum of care. You know, the whole thing from a patient being identified as a patient to the patient being off the list as a patient. For the longest time, in fact, from 1950s, when the first hip implant was implanted, the whole industry was evolving around implants. Either there be a craniofacial, either there be a spine or extremities, either there be a large or small joints, hips, knees, either it be an impulse. All the companies, all the innovation was all focused on the implants themselves. In fact, the competitive advantages and basis for those competitive advantages within the companies was all about the implants. So as implants continue to evolve, industry evolved and started introducing different polymers, different materials. In other words, if you really think about it, continuum of care continued to be about the implant. It was just a matter of what material is made of. So for folks here in the room, there may be a chemist, biologist, material scientist. You know that original implants were heavily based on titanium, cobalt, maybe some stainless steel materials. But then a little bit later, the involvement of new materials, and but honestly, not every material succeeded, but you can see some implants that came out of PEEK, some of it came out of ceramics, some of them came from nitinol, Teflon, silicones, and then we also tried to get creative and started working with some sort of coatings, bioabsorbables, composites. And nevertheless, those are a lot of those things are more tries than succeeds. However, when I think about my career, and I encourage you to do the same thing, is there's nothing wrong with trying something new and going from a comfortable environment of just working on the implants to spend some time and working with the materials for those implants. Honestly, I can tell you this, that I had a really good time working with nitinol implants for a long time as a new material. But one thing is for sure, industry learned, healthcare industry learned, not just the medical device industry, and they realized that it is not all about the implants. In fact, a lot of times, implants may be great, but the surgery is so invasive that the wound care, that the surgery length itself, that the patient during the surgery, by being under anesthesia, suffers more from that solution to their problem than the implant itself that was implanted in their body. So what happened? We start seeing involvement of surgical instruments. Again, looking back in my career, I was blessed enough to work for a company that was in the forefront of this change and started thinking about how do we maximize the OR time? How do we maximize turnaround, minimize the patient impact from these surgeries, and start thinking about how can we differently approach different implants to be implanted, obviously, in a patient. Few things came out of this, guys, and this is super nice, super good. I tell you this much. First of all, we found out that we can do the same surgery, but from different angles. We found out that the back surgery doesn't have to be done from the back. It can actually be done through your stomach. It can be done from your sides, from your left and right sides. We also find out that it can be done with minimum invasive tools. You don't have to have a full open, body surgery in order to have a replacement or implanting of a medical device. We also find out that the hospitals were able to turn around the OR time, the OR being the operating rooms, more frequently. So they went from 4 to 6 surgeries maybe a day at maximum to 7 to 8 turns. And in some cases, some surgeries and some ORs are now turning around between 11 and 12 times in a day. Now think about that from the revenue perspective. Think about that, how many more patients are being served, how many patients that are not waiting longer to get served. That's pretty impressive. So my point here and takeaway is that don't shy away from working on the peripheral stuff, not just the main things, not just on the implant, but the things that help put implant into our body. So with that said, what happens is the continuum of care now start opening up, and we start seeing things like a pre-op talk, meaning pre-operational talk and planning, as well as the post-operational talk and planning. Now, what does this mean, again, from us and from my career and from your career tomorrow? That means now all of a sudden we see a broader, wider expansion of the medical device field in itself. We see things that had never been part of the medical device industry before now becoming a part of the medical device industry. We see people that historically, where you never think about having a career in medical device industry, like software developers, programmers, like people that work in the different regulatory industries, and makes you think, why not? Obviously, in 2025, on the cusp of going to 2026, you wonder, like, why is there even a conversation? It's normal. It's expected. It is a part of the new continuum of care. True, but put yourself in it 25, 30 years ago, when all this started to expand, and when those things did not exist, and the people, like I just mentioned, didn't even think about getting a career in medical device industry, meaning working on a medical device, not necessarily supporting it, but working on a individual medical device. So with that said, what happened? We start seeing things on the preoperative end where innovation started driving and expansion started driving things like a PMI. Now, PMI, we like to call PMI patient-matched implants, meaning during the pre-op stage, you can start seeing things like, how can I make the implant fit the patient versus opening a patient and cutting the bone and making the bone and patient fit the implant. Let that sink for a moment. How many people today and in past 50 years were fitted something just because that was the size, that was the implant that existed, and their bones and their anatomy had to be fitted towards those implants? And of course, now we see things like a patient match implants that can be decided, created as a part of the pre-op activity before you even get to the operating room. They open up a whole new career field, folks. For folks that never, again, that want to be creative, they want to be a problem solvers, they want to work constantly on the new implants, created a great opportunity to step into. We also have seen PSI, what we call a patient-specific instruments, meaning not only the instruments were matching the implants, but also now the instruments were matching the patient. So the cutting tools, the tryouts, the cutting tools, right? Like things that used to be as you design an implant, you design instrument that goes with it. Now you're thinking, well, I got a patient, I need to figure out what implant I need to do, and then I need to actually customize and make a patient-specific instruments to match that particular surgery, that particular patient. PSM, I don't know how many of you guys want to guess this, but patient-specific materials. Once again, we learned throughout the industry and through evolution that as we implant things into people's bodies tends to reject them in some cases. While there may be many reasons why that happens, which ultimately drives some of the vision surgeries, the fact is, not every implant, not every material fits every patient. Most famous probably is the case of a nickel. Many people around the world have been found to have a nickel allergies. And what that does, obviously, is if you implant a device like maybe cobalt chrome as an example, even though there's a small amounts of nickel in it, it still can generate allergic reaction and ultimately make patients sicker than what it was before they had an implant. I didn't want to put some pictures in it because they can be very gross, and this is before lunch. I didn't want to ruin your lunch. But because of the reasons like that, we start looking into the patient-specific materials. So yes, the implant needs to be designed, but we also need to be thinking of what material depends on the patient. So once again, from the career opportunities perspective, if you're a chemist, if you're a material scientist, guess what? The whole new field open up for you in medical device industry. 3D printing of it today, I have one. I don't know if you guys can see me or not, but in my own study, right next to my desk, I actually have a 3D printer. I like to toy with it. A lot of people like to toy with it. There's nothing new today about having a 3D printer. However, think about that from the pre-op perspective. Now we can print models on the spot, patient specific, that we can show the patient, demonstrate to the patient what will happen to the patient during the operation so they can visualize it, they can live through it at least once and be at peace going into the surgery, which we all know the stress creates a adverse impact on human body when it comes to recovery stage. So if you can get a patient that goes into surgery and the more relaxed mode, knowing what to expect, imagine how much positive outcome we get as a result of it. Folks, I don't want to go detail by detail because my time is limited, but I do want to talk about things like disposable single-use instruments. They open up, again, whole new career, whole new field for us. Most surgeries historically were done in operating rooms, part of the large hospitals, where the cost was high, administrative cost was too high, where turnaround was honestly a little bit too slow, and when the instruments that were used in the surgeries had to be autoclaved, cleaned, repaired, and put it back in the surgery, and sometimes that can take 2 to 3 days to happen. And of course, what that does, once again, it limits the opportunity to turn around the ORs faster, but also takes away from the doctors to make some decisions about continuum of care for a patient. So I can tell you folks, one of the probably biggest upsides that we have today already and in the years to come in medical device industry is to work on disposable single-use instruments that can be used in what we call ASCs, which is the ambulatory surgical centers. Most of them are owned by doctors. Doctors make more and more money, more surgeries happen, more patients are taken care of, and as an industry, obviously, we help get that 6 people per second or even more as we shift towards ambulatory surgical centers. Nevertheless, if you are into technology, you know the virtual reality environment is here and is here to stay, is here to evolve. If you're in software, if you're a visual person, if you like if you're a geek, right? Either virtual reality or mixed reality, that's now becoming a norm in many cases. In many cases in the United States, we see these virtual surgeries being done before the real surgeries. What we also see is that training of the new doctors, the success of the and of outcomes of the surgeries are increasingly getting better. So, I can tell you that it's pretty cool to work on this. I haven't spent much time, I have to admit. I work with the partners that provide those technologies to our company. However, when you see those things, it's really, really impressive. And you put those goggles, you see the body inside, before you open it, and it's pretty darn cool. Robotics not only that open up opportunity to be more precise, to actually give a better care to the patient, but also open up opportunity for remote care. So a patient that could not get a care in maybe in a country that does not have as good health system, does not have a doctor, does not have a specialist, now some of those surgeries can be done remote with the doctor sitting in the United States, and the surgeries are happening in the less developed country. And finally, software as a medical device. Nothing new there today if you think about it, but if you once again put yourself in the last 30 years, there's been a major development and involvement. And I remember the day when FDA, Federal Drug Administration in the United States, started classifying software as medical device, and how much of a shock there was that we can call a software medical device, but also how much shock was that it's going to be regulated. So once again, if you continue to go to the route of the pre-op, the opportunities are just starting. You can go in and meet the patient before they become a patient. You can help patients not being a patient anymore. And as you can see, as an involvement from the medical device industry perspective, we see this field opening, blowing up essentially widely. And you have heard already some of this work and some of the advice and some of the Q&A during the presentation last night, and even the one that just happened before I started. Folks, again, for the sake of time, I'm going to speed up on the post-op. I don't want to go too much into a detail, but you may be familiar if you live in the medical device field, and if you've just been in any kind of regulated industry, the regulations are changing. Either that be in the United States or in Europe with the CE marking, or in China, or any other countries for that matter, that has its own standalone regulations and registrations of the medical devices. We see some things like synchronizing the requirements and regulations between the countries. And we also see some cases where countries still want to do their own thing, or they want to synchronize the regulations, but they want to still separate their registrations within their own country. What that does, well, up to this point, this was all nice and neat for people that like technology. They are more on the technical side, engineering side, mathematics. But there's a whole career and career opportunities on the soft side, meaning working with the quality and working with the regulatory departments to work on these registrations. And honestly, folks, I would tell you, as somebody who works very closely with regulatory, those people have a job security pretty darn good. Because again, either regulations are merging and synchronizing, which means that we have to adapt to it, and we need regulatory people to help us, or that diverging and countries establishing their own specific registrations, which again, we need a regulatory person to do this. So whichever pendulum swings when it comes to regulation, you have to have a regulatory person to help you out get it there. Finally, I would say this when it comes to self-monitoring, but also post-operative activities, we see more and more emphasis and the need to monitor the patients after the surgery, after they've been to the OR, after they have the implants or some surgical procedures done. Unfortunately, people are not very compliant. People go out to the surgeon and say, oh, I can walk, I'm good to go. I can just ignore the recovery. I can record the PT, the physical therapy. I can ignore reporting to the doctor. I can ignore going to the doctor, especially as life gets busy. And in some cases, in some countries where healthcare is very expensive, people just don't want to spend the money on it anymore because they feel, quote unquote, good enough. The opportunity for us as an industry, as a professionals, is huge on this front, is to how to make things easy for the patients after the surgery so that we can keep monitoring patients for the rest of their life. Why we want to do this? Well, first, we're increasing a chance for a patient to be successful, to have a better quality of life. But also imagine how much data we can generate from that post-op activities that can feed back into designs of the implants and instruments and EORs and ASCs, and even the pre-op activities that we can feed into the softwares and virtual realities, the mixed realities. So yeah, and then of course revisions are becoming a big portion of our life. Unfortunately, we still have, no matter how good job we do, we still have to have 5 to 35% of the implants that get implanted gets revised, meaning second surgery is required. Folks, once again, spending 27 years in the medical device industry, I had a chance to work on many of these things. Not all of them. I still have blank spots. Some things I don't want to really work on. I'm not an expert. I don't have a desire necessarily to go into those spaces. But as you can see, if over time you get a chance to work on different things and gives you opportunity to not only work on the technical aspects but grow your career. So what does this mean for Bosnia, right? I will speed up again for the sake of time, but I was pleased to look up some very credible sources like EY and KPMG, and even some of the information that I was able to gather directly from the Bosnian healthcare system. And I was happy to see that the healthcare system in Bosnia is growing. From 2025 to 2030 is expected to grow by $70 million. It's supposed to grow from 206 million to 276 million, about 24% growth rate. But then I was trying to dissect as best as I can, only focus on the medical device industry. And what does this mean? How many patients, how many total addressable market exist in Bosnia, and it will grow to 2030. And I found out that estimated opportunity is about $1.4 billion. Yes, that's with the B, $billion, right? So the opportunity, the upside to come up, to register new devices, to come up with the new devices, to take care of the patients in Bosnia is huge. And I was also pleased to see that the number of companies in Bosnia continues to grow. From 2020 to 2025, it appears that we registered in Bosnia 33 additional companies, went from 139 companies to 172 companies. Look at this, very proportional growth rate, about 24%. So that tells us that the market and the number of companies are relatively in sync. But also tells us that if you put this in a proportion, the opportunities for the new medical device companies, as well as for these companies to grow, is just enormous. It is just super. Honestly, folks, I'm super excited for this market, for these opportunities, for the career, for the patients that can benefit from this technology in Bosnia. But let me say this, no matter what I tell you, no matter what anyone else tell you, you have to take action. When it comes to your professional development, there is nobody else but you. And when it comes to looking into what you need to do, when it comes to your true overall career and professional development, please take a note of this. If not you, then who? And if not now, then when? I was blessed enough to write a few books on the topic of professional development, and this coming up over and over again. As I help people, as I help young professionals, as I coach them, mentor them, what I'm finding out is the ownership of taking that and acting now on your professional development is lacking. So, as a friend to friend, as a professional to professional, as a guest speaker to you today, keep in mind this. When it comes to your career and professional development, if it's not you, then who? And if it's not now, then when? And if you really think that every problem has been solved, or the problems are too big to be solved, or that the solutions have to be too big in order for you to benefit from it or to implement it, just keep in mind this one thing. As a human race, we put a man on the moon before we put the wheels on the luggage. Think about it for a second. Let that sink in. A lot of folks want to be a hero, solve big problems. And honestly, as an industry, we solve a lot of big problems. Now we need to start thinking about small problems as if they are big problems. What do I mean by this? Don't ignore small things, small inconveniences. Our patients that have a different anatomy than most other patients. Don't forget that our expansion, our continuum of care is expanding in both directions, in preventive care as well as the post-operative care. Think about vertical, how deep, how you want to go. Either there be from the bigger the company, smaller the company, smaller the problem, bigger the problem. There's the opportunities, like I said, I can't even express it, honestly, folks. After 27 years in the medical device industry, I'm probably more excited today than ever been before. But when I read this quote, that reminded me, I actually heard it and then I found it. It says that as a human race, we put a man on the moon before we put our wheels on the luggage. Every time when I travel, look at my luggage, it's like, oh my God, I'm so happy that somebody came up with this. So I don't have to carry my back. I don't have to carry my hands. So think about it from your own career perspective, from your own problem that you're trying to solve for the patients. Maybe going small is the solution. So with that said, I would conclude, I would say that I'm very much pleased, honored to be part of today's presentation, to be part of the Future Leaders Summit, to share my journey. And I can tell you only that my journey continues. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm be more than happy to take any questions you may have, any thoughts you want to share, either right now directly, or stay in touch, or connect with me either on the LinkedIn or to the contact information otherwise. So I'll pause here. I did receive 3 questions through LinkedIn for people that reach out to me already and decide to contact me or link with me. And unless there's other questions, maybe I can cover those. But I'll be happy to take questions straight up from the room if there's any available.
Thank you very much, Jasmin, for this amazingly
I
interesting
take
and useful
a silence,
presentation.
as they know.
Now we will
I don't see,
facilitate a
unfortunately, the
virtual
room, but
Q&A session. So
I will
I
just cover
invite
this
you
very
all
quickly,
to
folks.
please scan the QR code
Just from the
located behind
motivational
me,
perspective,
ask your
I had
question,
somebody
and
recently,
Jasmin will be able to answer your question promptly.
somebody recently said, hey, Jasmin, okay, I understand the patients are motivating you and seeing the impact of the patients that you have, but is there a quote that matters to you more than others, especially when it comes to professional development? And I love this quote that historically has been attributed to 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, where he says something along the lines of, the best way to predict your future is to create it. Again, talking about taking the wheel in your own hands and driving it. Don't let things happen to you, make things happen to you. Or sorry, don't let things happen to you, make things happen for you. So again, the quote that motivates me is the best way to predict the future is to create it. I see some questions popping up. So what unmet clinical need drives your current product roadmap? Great question. I would tell you this, that I mentioned ASCs, ambulatory surgical centers. So it's not as much as a clinical need, as a new solution to be solved, as much as to be able to help more patients in environments where they don't have to wait as long. They can go in and out in the same day, and potentially get their surgeries at a cheaper rate. What do I mean by this? 3D enables us to do this, and being able to print like knees, they have a porosity on it already that doesn't require cement, that doesn't require long surgery, doesn't require even a full knee replacement, as let's say example, a knee, that you can go and just literally just plug and play. The surgery goes from 2 hours to 35 minutes. The patient goes from being under anesthesia for 2 hours to 35 minutes. The OR or ASC gets turned around faster. The patient quality of life gets better. The doctor's quality of life gets better. So if you ask me, well, if I had my own company and I had the ultimate decision to decide what product should be working on, I would say probably support ASC, which by the way can include instruments as well. How far do you see future progress in making assistive tools smaller, lighter, and easier to integrate into daily life? Interesting. I would take this as a assistive tool smaller. So I'm going to guess that these are people that have limited abilities or have some disabilities, and how we can provide them tools, medical devices that can make it easier for them to, let's say, regain functionality, even though the disability state may be still there. So if I'm reading your question right, that's how I'm going to interpret it. Honestly, I personally don't spend much time on wearables and things that go home with the patient. I had responsibility in my previous role where we had a device that was a leading device in the market when it comes to the bone growth stimulator, meaning that if somebody breaks a bone or has a limited issues with the bone, they can heal it faster. And those things were wearable, those things were taken home. But honestly, that I'm not gonna speculate, folks. I'm sorry, that's not space that I spend time in it. And I don't want to just make up answer for that. How many years did it take for you to where you are now? 27, right? I first time joined medical device industry in 1999. And since then, there's been nothing but a blessing. When I think about the number of patients that I probably helped one way or the other, is about 2 million. And I work from literally from head to toe, from cranial facial stuff to spine, extremities, down to the ankles. And honestly, I've been very busy. I work every day trying to get myself better, and but honestly, it takes 27 years to where I am today. What skills should students build today to work on this future? So that's actually a great question. I had a conversation just 2 days ago with somebody who just graduated, and he was asking me what's the next education step they should take. And again, 30 years ago, I would say let's focus on the implants, the technical aspects, maybe focus on some anatomy. But today, the industry is so widely open. If you have a passion for medical device industry, you can probably find a space to work in it. Still, if my own kids, I have kids, and when I advise them and I talk to them about their education, folks, this I'm biased, but I will tell you, you cannot go wrong with engineering. You cannot go wrong with the software development, and you cannot go wrong with the regulatory aspect when it comes to the medical devices. Any of those three things, I honestly think that no matter what else happens, those three things will be needed, and it will be needed everywhere around the world. Um, did I miss one? Regulatory complexities you mentioned. What is the one barrier to entry you think local emerging leaders are best positioned to solve compared to global players? Folks, listen, that's actually a great question. And unfortunately, that does puts a little bit of folks there that they don't have as much funds or they don't have as much resources to spend on this. But as CE got revised, as you guys probably know, that went from the MDD to the EU MDR, what's known as a medical device regulations versus medical device directives. The heavy emphasis now is getting the data and doing the clinical studies. Those things takes time. Even if you have a product on the market, you have to retrospectively go and do the data collection and data analysis, and extremely burdensome. It's extremely burdensome. There are companies that are multi-billion dollar companies with the 80% margins. They choose to exit certain markets and retire certain products because the cost of doing that is just so high. Listen, folks, I'm not against regulations, just to be clear. However, that regulation, I believe, needs to be more balanced between the speed to the market so we can help the patient versus being too conservative and just trying to minimize or eliminate the risk that we may create for our patient. So, listen, it is a burdensome. It's going to be expensive. Now, let me just say that. Let me put a positive spin on this. Even with the EU MDR, even with the FDA revising and matching up 1345 standards to the FDA regulations, the opportunities are now that if you are compliant to one, you are almost compliant exactly to the other. So what that means is, yes, upfront, you may have to spend a little bit more time. You have to learn more. But once you get that first hump behind you, then the market opens up everywhere for you. It becomes much easier to be compliant to the others. So there's an upside to it. It's just that unfortunately the first hill is very steep that you have to climb. Are you currently cooperating with software consultants? And would you
Jasmin,
consider
we
working
are
with
running
consultants
out of
from
time.
Bosnia? Of course. Listen, so we work with software consultants and in different aspects of it, right? We have people that helping us with just making the softwares that are part of the medical device. As you guys know, looks like that maybe as somebody who's in the software industry, you probably know that there's a whole new regulations that actually originated from Japan that requires a software that's embedded into the medical device, the whole new level of security. And there's a whole requirements and regulations just to meet the security requirements. So in other words, it doesn't really matter if it works or not. You have to make sure it's secure properly. And so there's a second group of consultants and certain second group of experts that honestly is still not there. I mean, there are people that know what they're doing, but I think the upside, the opportunity for more companies and more involvement is still largely open. And the third group of software consultants are the folks that support the medical device industry, right? Those are the things that help us run business. And obviously, with I don't want to use AI necessarily as a go-to answer, but as we continue to focus on getting the data, and instead of just doing the daily to day transactions in SAP or Workday or some other major platform, there's a whole new aspect now that we need to do data mining and to support our business and make better decisions. So yes, long answer to your question. Short answer to your question is yes. The long answer is the opportunities are huge, and Bosnia is no different, in my book, than any other countries when it comes to expertise. If you have expertise, you got to put them out there. People need to find out who you are, where you are. All right, so I don't see any more questions. I don't know if that means that all questions are being answered.
Thank you very much,
Unfortunately,
Jasmin.
we ran out of time,
I'm
so
sorry
I
to
will
all of you
answer
if
the
your
other two
question
questions that
remained
I had
unanswered.
here.
I'm sure that Jasmin is
But I
willing to take
sincerely.
questions on LinkedIn too, or if he join us next year on FLS as well. It's